What up, YouTube? Here with Talk Boxing, episode number 10. And on this episode, I'm going to be covering a few topics. First subject I'm going to cover on this episode is tomorrow's major undisputed lightweight women's title fight between the defending champion, Katie Taylor, taking on the WBC and WBO featherweight champion, Amanda Serrano. She's moving up to lightweight to challenge Katie Taylor for her crown. You got two undefeated pound-for-pound queens getting in the ring to see who the best, because these two are the household names when it comes to women's boxing. This is going to be huge for the sport of boxing, period, especially for women's boxing, because now they're having, more light shed on them, and they'll be headlining the card on the Zone tomorrow at Madison Square Garden. This is huge for the sport of boxing. That's the Madison Square Garden. That's like the mecca of sports, period, and boxing falls right along in that category of belonging at the mecca. That's like, Broadway of the plays. Madison Square Garden is the equivalent of that when it comes to the sport of boxing as well. So yeah, this got huge implications to it. And then, of course, tomorrow is a huge night for boxing, period. If y'all haven't checked out my preview of Shakur Stevenson versus Oscar Valdez, that's also another title fight going down tomorrow between two undefeated champions who are the best at their weight class. So, it's going to be a huge night for boxing tomorrow. But I haven't made a prediction and given my preview and analysis for this fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. Serrano has the experience advantage. Serrano has been on top of the women's boxing scene longer than Katie Taylor has, but I say Katie Taylor has been making more of a splash lately. Katie Taylor, 2 years the elder, even though Serrano has the experience advantage. But the weight advantage, like I said, is Serrano moving up in weight. This ain't no catchweight fight. They're fighting at lightweight for Katie Taylor's titles, not Serrano's titles. So Taylor's gonna, have that advantage of fighting at her own neutral weight class. I haven't checked out the weigh-ins for this fight yet, but I haven't heard any reports of Amanda Serrano having trouble making the lightweight weight. Anyways, I think Katie Taylor has a little bit of the edge here when it comes to this fight, stylistically speaking, from what I've seen so far. Katie Taylor is the orthodox stance fighter. Amanda Serrano, the southpaw. Amanda Serrano, she's more of a pop puncher. She likes to throw one shot, and, that's how she doesn't really throw combos like that. Katie Taylor, she's good with her combos. Amanda Serrano, I think her best punch is that lead pop, backhand shot, and that's the best weapon for a southpaw, is that straight left. And she throws that as her offense starter, and, she likes to double that up after the lead backhand, follow that up with a swivel jab and another straight left. That's her best combos. With Katie Taylor, she can mix it up a little better, and I think she got a better counter punch, and she's more faster when it comes to countering her opponents. And Amanda Serrano, I think her defense is also beneath Katie Taylor's defense. Katie Taylor, she knows how to use her guards, and I think both fighters could read distance well, so I think they're equal on that level. But when it comes to defense, I think Amanda Serrano, from the tapes I've seen, she doesn't keep her hands up high to, guard her chin. When she throws with the left, her right hand is down. When she throws with the right, her left hand is down. And a counterpuncher and a smart fighter like Katie Taylor could take advantage of that. Let's say Amanda Serrano throws her signature swivel jab, and then she drops the left hand. If Katie Taylor could read that and see that coming and telegraph that, a good counterpuncher like Katie Taylor, could come around and hit her with her signature counter left hook, while her right hand is down. While let's say she throws her other signature punch, right? The lead backhand, right? The lead left, and her right hand is down, and then Katie Taylor could telegraph that coming after, she gets in the groove. She could throw that signature counter left hook with the right hand of Serrano not guarding her face, and she could take advantage of that. And once she connects, she could follow that up with her patented combination of punches. And I think that's how I see it going. I think Katie Taylor should pick up the win and outpoint Amanda Serrano come tomorrow night and earn herself a unanimous decision win. That's my predictions. That's who I'm picking to win the fight. Yeah, y'all let me know who y'all picking. I'm looking forward to this fight. If y'all got a prediction video out there somewhere talking about this fight, um, giving y'all previews and analysis on it, I'll be more than glad to check it out. And if not, then feel free to comment on who y'all picking to win this fight and why. I'd love to hear y'all thoughts. Anyways, moving along to the next topic. As y'all know, Tyson Fury successfully defended his Ring Magazine and WBC heavyweight titles by knocking out Dillian Whyte in the 6th round in front of 94,000 people at the Wembley Stadium in his return home fight back to London, England. And then after the fight, there's been talks building up to this fight that Tyson Fury was going to announce his retirement. That shit been speculating, pardon my language, that's been speculating since the Deontay Wilder fight, the third fight with Deontay Wilder, after he successfully knocked out Deontay Wilder to end a rivalry in their third fight. T said in the post-fight interview that he told his wife that he would retire after that fight, but then he felt like, he owed his fans back home in England a return home fight, and boy did they show out for him. You got two big British heavyweights fighting for the heavyweight title, and the people showed out. I don't think no fighter in America that is American could pull off a crowd like that. Let's say they have an all-American fight. Let's say the fight that we all waiting for is the Terrence Crawford Errol Spence fight, right? And let's say they have a fight at the AT&T Stadium, which is the hometown of Errol Spence. I don't think there's going to be 94,000 people in the seats, and I think personally, almost every boxing fans, even the British boxing fans, could admit that that's the fight that we're looking more forward to, and it's definitely the more compelling competitive fight on paper than Tyson Fury and Dillian Whyte. Heading into this fight, I can't say for a fact because this is boxing, but I was confident that Tyson Fury was going to knock out Dillian Whyte, and my predictions were right. That's exactly what Tyson Fury did. He landed a good timed uppercut that floored Dillian Whyte. It was almost like when Povetkin knocked him out, but this time, he got up on his feet. I made a post-fight video to the Tyson Fury Dillian Whyte fight. Y'all go check that out. But he did announce his retirement. It was a regular Tyson Fury performance. He retired. And I've been talking with other boxing fans on boxing forums. I think Tyson Fury is definitely, it's hard to say who is the greatest British boxer of all time, but he's in that mix without a question. The competition ain't as fierce in the heavyweight division as it was back in the days when, I guess, fellow Brit, when Lennox Lewis was fighting, but the heavyweight boxing scene has had a good resurgence as of late. I say ever since the Klitschko era ended, the heavyweight boxing scene has had a good mix. And Tyson Fury has been on top of that mix. He is who is responsible to, start the resurgence of heavyweight boxing, because he ended the Klitschko era when he defeated Vladimir Klitschko. And then he had a few more fights after that. Then he had to retire due to personal problems. Then he fixed that. Then he came back and got back on top, and then hasn't lost since. He retired undefeated. I think people sleep on Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua. They might not, pardon me, messed up on my words there. Bear with me. But they might not be as technically sound as a Tyson Fury or Alexander Usyk. But they bring excitement when it comes to heavyweight boxing, because when the general public taps in to heavyweight boxing, they looking for guys like Deontay Wilder and Anthony Joshua, big dudes who could knock their opponents out clean, and that was their reputation. And when Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury met for the first time, that was Tyson Fury's first comeback fight. You know, he wanted the titles that he never lost, and he got it back, and he did that versus the most feared puncher in the sport. He still, you know, if Deontay Wilder, I don't know what's up with him. You know, I don't know if he's going to retire or not, but he's still, if he gets back into, you know, that beast mode, he's still probably the most fearsome puncher in the sport of boxing. You know, and Tyson Fury, I think, you know, him, you know, being in the mix as the greatest English boxer of all time, you know, that I think, in my opinion, that's without a question. I think, you know, that's a part of his legacy, that he's in the conversation to be one of the greatest British boxers of all time. Retiring undefeated, you know, of course, Calzaghe did that, but, you know, you can't, you know what I'm saying? Like, once you're in this kind of field, you can't, you know, not hear criticism or people say, oh, he's not the greatest, it's all up for debate. This is what, you know what I'm saying, like, keeps the sport or whatever things of this nature going. And, you know, Tyson Fury, I think, you know, if he were to, you know, stay active and wait for the winner of the rematch between Usyk and Joshua, and he fights the winner of that fight to see who's the undisputed heavyweight champion. And I think Tyson Fury beats either Joshua and Usyk. I think, you know, he's too technically sound for Anthony Joshua. And I think he outboxes him. I think he gets him out of there by the late to mid rounds, like mid to late mid rounds, I say. I think he'll get Anthony Joshua out of there between, I say 6 to 9 rounds. Give it somewhere between those rounds. He gets Joshua out of there. And Alexander Usyk, you know, his accomplishments is undeniable, but he's fresh to heavyweight. Yeah, he beat Anthony Joshua, but I think it's because his technicality, and he's just a better pure boxer. And it showed the outclassing when they met for the first time. But I think that size advantage cannot be ignored when it comes to Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. And Tyson Fury can box his ass off as well. So I think, you know, that's a chess match between the two. It's not, stylistically speaking, it's not going to call for a fan-friendly affair. But I think, you know, Tyson Fury can bully Alexander Usyk to a decision win. If not, you know, he might catch him with a good flush shot and, you know, get Alexander Usyk out of there. But I think I'm confident to say Tyson Fury can retire as the undisputed, undefeated heavyweight champion, and that would definitely have him at number one as the best boxer to come out of the UK. For sure. I think, you know, if he becomes undisputed and fights a winner of Usyk and Joshua, and I don't know, man, this is sport of boxing. Tyson Fury came out of retirement before when he was in a rougher spot, but, you know, he's on top, he's in good mental shape, and he announced his retirement with a clear conscience. So I don't know if he's going to come back from retirement yet another time, but, you know, if he does decide to do that, I think that, you know, is a greater legacy left behind than the one Joe Calzaghe left behind, who's another British fighter who retired undefeated, but he never was the undisputed super middleweight champion. And, you know, that criticism comes in. That topic right there on who's the greatest talent to ever come out of the UK, that's a whole nother video right there. So I'm going to say that for another video. But yeah, Tyson Fury, man, he announced his retirement. He said, you know, he's going to do exhibition bouts. I guess he's taking the Floyd Mayweather route. That's another, you know, fellow undefeated great who retired undefeated and is still putting on, you know, big money matchups, not fighting currently active champions in the sport, but having, you know, crossover matchups with, you know, other combat sport athletes, entertainers, whatever you may, you know, whatever route that they may want to take, because Tyson Fury said he's going to go back to the WWE, make an appearance there. So he, you know what I'm saying, he doesn't need boxing. You know, he's accomplished what he feels like, he needed to accomplish to, cement his legacy as a great in the sport. He's not worried about money. He's financially set, and he's also got, other incomes that, he could have coming his way. So he doesn't need boxing. So, I don't think anything is necessarily calling him out to, say, hey, come out of retirement to become undisputed champion. We all would like to see it, but, the route I think he's taking is that Floyd Mayweather route. It's safer, it's lower risk, very high rewards. No brainer right there. And he's saying he's going to have a, hybrid mix between MMA and boxing matchup between him and the UFC heavyweight champion Francis Ngannou. Y'all remember Floyd Mayweather did that, a few years back versus, I don't know if Conor McGregor was the UFC champion when he fought Floyd, but they fought, strictly under boxing guidelines. But Tyson Fury is advertising that when him and Francis Ngannou, whenever they decide to, make this event happen, they're saying next year, but who knows, right? It's gonna be a, mix of MMA and boxing. I don't know how that's gonna work. Y'all remember Muhammad Ali did that with a pro wrestler from Japan, Antonio Inoki. They had like a pro wrestling / boxing matchup. I guess it's gonna be something like that. It sounded like a shit show to me, but it's gonna be a huge event. You know what I'm saying? Because you got a UFC heavyweight champion and a lineal heavyweight boxing champion, having a match that's, a boxing / MMA kind of fight, and that calls for a draw. They're both big draws, heavyweight champions in their own respective sport. It calls for a big event. It's got huge, money involved in it, and I guess that's the route that Tyson Fury is heading in, and Francis Ngannou and many other UFC fighters has been complaining about the payrolls that from the UFC. They feel like fighters' pay should be higher for UFC fighters, and Francis Ngannou having that crossover match with Tyson Fury, he's gonna get more money than he's ever gotten before. Look what happened to Conor McGregor after he fought Floyd Mayweather. He's been a draw before that, but it catapulted him into more of a sensation than he already was. And I think that's the route that Francis Ngannou wants to take as well. So, best of luck to Tyson Fury. He's definitely left a great legacy behind. If he's gonna, he already officially announced a retirement, but if he stays retired and, does what he plans to do, and hey, my hat's off to him, man. You know what I'm saying? Best of luck to his future endeavors, and he's for sure one of the greats to ever come out of England. Does he make my top 10 heavyweight, GOAT list? I don't know. I gotta sit and think about that, and that's a whole nother video right there. So yeah, with that being said, that's the second subject I'm gonna cover on this episode of Talk Boxing. The next subject, moving along, you have, this is heavyweight boxing related as well. You have former champion Andy Ruiz, who snapped that undefeated streak of Anthony Joshua. Y'all remember Anthony Joshua made his debut over in America a few years back, and it was versus Andy Ruiz. A lot of people slept on him. His performance versus Joseph Parker, that showed that, he's dangerous and he could fight at top level. But it was supposed to be a squash match when Andy Ruiz got in there with Anthony Joshua. But, that catapulted him into stardom, and then he lost a rematch in Saudi Arabia. I don't think he was, fully prepared and at his, best. I don't think he was in his best fighting shape when he fought Anthony Joshua for the second time. Not making any excuses for Andy Ruiz, but that just from what I seen. And he's gonna fight Louise Ortiz, who's coming off of a knockout win over Charles Martin earlier this year in January. Of course, he's like 41, 42 years old. He's like, the old gatekeeper at heavyweight boxing, but this is heavyweight boxing, and he could still, hit like a motherfucker. Pardon my language once more. Bear with me. You know what I'm saying? Anyways, I ain't tripping off that. But yeah, you have Luis Ortiz versus Andy Ruiz going down August. I don't know what exact date in August, but I don't know. I don't even know if it's gonna be on pay per view because Charles Martin versus Luis Ortiz was on pay per view, and I don't think me and Kuda, a lot of boxing fans were like, "What is this? How is this a pay per view worthy fight? Like, it's not like." But they decided to put it on pay per view anyway. Keith Thurman and Mario Barrios was on pay per view. I'm like, that fight, the cards was stacked. But even looking at the card, when people look at a stacked card, they still look at the main event. That is not a pay per view headliner. Neither is Thurman, Barrios. Definitely not Ortiz and Martin. That definitely is not a pay-per-view headliner, and I don't even think that card was really stacked like that for it to be on pay-per-view. So I don't know. Andy Ruiz and Chris Arreola, that was Andy Ruiz's last fight. That was also on pay-per-view, and that headliner is like, Of course, it's going to be an attraction over there in LA because they're both Southern California fighters. That's going to be an attraction over there for the tickets to be sold. But to be sold on pay-per-view for people to watch at their homes, nah, I don't think so. I don't think that was a pay-per-view worthy event either. Not to discredit either Luis Ortiz or Andy Ruiz, but I have a feeling PBC is going to have that as a pay-per-view fight. They need their back in. And this fight is also happening in LA as well, and it makes sense because Andy Ruiz is from LA, and people out there support him fully, and Luis Ortiz as well. I don't know about he had his last fight in Florida, I think in Miami or somewhere like that. They got a huge Cuban population over there, but in LA, I don't know. There's going to be a pro Andy Ruiz crowd, but LA is a boxing town. It should be, a good summer event for the sport of boxing when Luis Ortiz and Andy Ruiz gets in there. Looking forward to that. Should be a good, entertaining fight between the two recognizable heavyweight contenders. And then the last subject I'm going to cover on this episode, Demetrious Andrade. He's got a fight coming up May 21st in England. Now, I don't know if it's his debut in England. Remember, he was supposed to fight Billy Joe Saunders way back then, but Billy Joe Saunders tested positive for banned substance, and that fight got, canceled. And I think that fight was supposed to be in England, but I don't know if Andrade's ever had a fight in England. Most of his fights is, around his hometown. He's from Rhode Island, and he be having fights in New Hampshire, Connecticut, and Boston, and, places like that. Demetrious Andrade just can't attract fans. Other than the hardcore boxing fans and those that are really tapped into the sport of boxing, he don't really have eyes on them like that. But to, those that are tapped in with the sport, they say, this who Canelo got to fight next. This who Canelo's got to fight next. And he's been in the mix for the longest. He's undefeated, very talented, very technically sound, and he is a high-risk, low-reward type of fighter because he doesn't draw, unfortunately. So, if you're a Canelo or Triple G or any of the top draws, Jermell Charlo, if you're any of these guys, or let's say even Caleb Plant and David Benavidez, right? Those guys draw more than Demetrious Andrade. I'm just going to keep it real with y'all. Andrade, I think, might be more sharper skill-wise, but, he doesn't draw as much of these guys. Definitely not a Canelo. And, that's who he's chasing after. And he's going to have his first fight at super middleweight for the interim WBO super middleweight title. And mind you, Canelo holds all the titles at super middleweight. So this will put him right up there to be a mandatory challenger for one of Canelo's belts. And he's going to be fighting Zach Parker, who's undefeated, young, fresh talent. I have not seen any of his fights, so I don't know nothing about dude. I got to watch some of his fights before I give y'all my preview and give y'all my opinions on how this fight might go between Andrade and Parker. But yeah, he's fighting undefeated dude in his backyard in England. And it's supposedly rumored. I read an article on Boxing Scene somewhere that it might be his last fight, promoted by Eddie Hearns in Matchroom. It's gonna be on the Zone. But mind y'all, Canelo, his next fight versus Demetrius Bivol next week, actually, is my Canelo Alvarez signed like a 3-fight deal with the Zone, like for like over like $100 million or something like that, something crazy, some Canelo numbers right there. So it doesn't really make sense to me because Canelo works with Eddie Hearns for his fights, and he's under the Zone network deal right now. So it doesn't really make sense to me on how Andrade wants to leave Matchroom and the Zone after his fight with Parker if he's chasing that Canelo fight. Um, of course, Triple G is next in line to fight Canelo. That's a fellow middleweight champion because I don't think Andrade has vacated his WBO middleweight title. Mind you, Triple G is the majority title holder at middleweight. He holds the WBA and IBF title after he defeated Murad a few weeks back. He also fights on the Zone, and then you got the WBC middleweight champion Jamal Charlo, who fights under the PBC banner. Triple G, he's with the Zone, and Triple G is next in line to challenge Canelo Alvarez if he's successful at capturing the WBA light heavyweight title next week versus the undefeated champion Demetrius Bivol. Now, does he want to jump over to PBC to potentially have that unification title fight with Charlo? That would be big. I think, skill-wise, they're the top two when it comes to skill, pure boxing skills. I think Charlo and Andrade got more fundamentals than Triple G. Triple G's got some fundamentals, you know what I'm saying? But, he's more aggressive. He likes to, just, throw that technical shit to the side to really, knock out his opponents more than, having a chess match like Andrade. Andrade is a good finisher too, but, I think he's more technically sound than Triple G, just from what I've seen. And Charlo, him too. He's talented, but I don't think but that fight, I want to see that fight, Charlo and Andrade. And then I don't know if Andrade is saying that this might be his last fight with the Zone and Eddie Hearns, and he jumps over to PBC. And let's say, hypothetically speaking, he defeats Charlo and captures the WBC belt, and now he holds the WBO and WBC belt, while Triple G holds the WBA and IBF titles. All these undisputed title fights that's been happening lately in the sport of boxing, I think that should be mandatory that these two have a undisputed title fight showdown. But if he jumps over to PBC and Triple G stays on the Zone, and I'm sure Triple G will be moving up to super middleweight to challenge Canelo Alvarez, because I don't see no way Canelo jumping up from super middleweight to light heavyweight to skip super middleweight to jump down to middleweight to challenge Triple G for his middleweight titles at 160, when the last time they fought, Triple G didn't win that fight versus him. So he's got the upper hand, he's the bigger draw, and he won the last fight. So I think Triple G will be moving up in weight to meet Canelo and challenge for his undisputed titles at super middleweight. Y'all let me know what y'all think about that. Like everything I just said about, Demetrius Andrade in this situation. I'm going to give y'all my predictions after I see some few tapes of Zach Parker, I think that's his name, Andrade's next opponent, to give y'all my breakdown on, how this fight might go between the two. I'm picking Andrade for sure. I think, I'm just saying I got to see some footages of Parker before, I confidently say that. Like I said, I can't say I know for a fact because it's a sport of boxing. You never know what's going to happen. Everybody's got a puncher's chance. I got to see more of Parker, but I'm sure Andrade's a favorite, so I'm swinging towards Andrade's win to Andrade's side to come out victorious versus Parker come May 21st. But anyways, y'all let me know what y'all opinions is on what I said about Demetrius Andrade on this episode of Talk Boxing. Anyways, that does it, y'all. Leave y'all comments, share this if y'all like, subscribe, like, whatever, all that good stuff. Anyways, y'all, I'm out. Peace.